So, welcome everyone. This is season 3, episode 3 of Creator Tea Talk, and I'm very excited to have my guest here today. My name is Jayde Powell. I am your host. I am a creator, creatorpreneur, writer, speaker, creator, social strategist, a lot of things. I be doing a lot of shit, y'all. And I'm just a girl, really, who likes to use my creativity to do the things I enjoy. Creator Tea Talk is something that I started a couple of years ago to foster transparent conversations between creators and creator economy professionals. So think social media professionals, influencer marketing managers, founders, entrepreneurs, literally anyone in that space. Today, we're going to be talking about mental health because it's mental health awareness month. It's May, and I always love this topic just because I feel like we all know working in this industry, it can get really dicey sometimes. Mental health be flinging around. We never know what's going to happen. So I find that having open conversations really help in this space. I'm going to have my panelists introduce themselves. Who wants to go first?
I can jump in for us. I'm Alex Lewis. I'm based in Columbus, Ohio. I'm a writer and a social media art director. I write the Substack newsletter Feels Like Home, which is about things I love and people and moments that have shaped me. Write that rather consistently to a group of over 3,500 subscribers. And it's been really cool just getting to see how that space has become just a fun way to be able to connect with people online. And then I've also been a social media professional for nearly a decade. Started off in the social strategy space, and that's where I've been for most of my career, and recently pivoted to social media art direction, which has been a fun learning experience. But that's me.
Congrats.
Thanks.
Shira, Mimi?
Hi, I'm Shira Lazar. I am a digital broadcaster, content creator, also entrepreneur. I own a digital media brand and publisher called What's Trending. And I also recently, the past year or so, started an initiative called Creators for Mental Health, bringing mental well-being tools to the creator economy. And recently we launched one of our projects or companies within that commitment, which was Creator Care, bringing discounted sliding scale therapy to creators starting in California. So this is a topic that is very close to me, something I'm very passionate about, including in this creator and creative space we're in and growing industry and workforce. So thank you so much, Jayde, for having me today.
Happy to have you. Mimi?
Hey, what's good, everyone? So excited to be here. I am a speaker, content creator, all of the things. I'm a podcaster, and something I'm really passionate about is creating more access to the creator economy for creators who, are not on the radar. Maybe creators that are from underprivileged or small cities, right? Like I'm in Hartford, Connecticut, so we don't have a huge creator economy here. So I'm really passionate about just bringing access to that and also supporting content creators and creatives that are grievers. So I'm the founder and podcast host of the Grief Sense, which really I interview influencers and content creators who have experienced physical loss by death. And then I also have a newsletter called The Sala that really encompasses all grief, doesn't have to be death specific. So if you're a creator, you've experienced loss or kind of navigating grief and want to share your story and help other creators, please hit your girl up so I can feature you in the newsletter. But so happy to be here, Jayde. Love you. Thank you so much for having us.
Love you too. I'm so happy to have you all. When I chose this panel, I was very intentional about who I had on it because I wanted very different perspectives. Because while we're all in the creator economy space, we all do very different things and talk to very different communities. So I'm excited to welcome you to the show. Before I kick off with the first question, I just kind of wanted to set the tone for why this conversation has come about. The mental health episode is an episode that has been one of my most popular episodes since I started this series. And I think it kind of goes to show the need for our conversation around mental health. As we know, as people in the creator economy, as people who are very online, working in social media in different capacities, this work can be very draining in a lot of different ways, mentally, physically, spiritually. And while there are resources out there, it doesn't seem as though mental health is probably like the top priority when people are thinking about the players in the creator economy. So with that said, what is something that you all have unlearned about being online, or at least in the sense hustle culture? And I say that because hustle culture is a topic that comes up often. I often talk about capitalism and how I'm like an anti-capitalist capitalist in both ways, because I do think while I love being a business owner, I love being a creator, the sustainability factor is something that's always top of mind. So what's something you've unlearned about hustle culture or always being online that's kind of helped you with your well-being?
I love this question. Um, I think that unlearning is a significant part of how I've evolved as a person, as a man, as someone who shows up for myself and my community. And for me, I'd say that, one of the things that I've unlearned is that my work or my productivity is my identity. I think that's, we oftentimes coming into our jobs, even you think about, as a kid, one of the first questions that you're asked is, what do you want to do when you grow up? And it's oftentimes through that lens of occupation. It's through that lens of, well, no, what are you going to do as your 9 to 5 job, as your career? And for me, as someone who, grew up in that, heard a lot of those messages, one of the most important things for me to learn was that I'm so much more than those things, that my life it goes beyond just what I do between the hours of 9 to 5. And I believe that's the truth for all of us. And then I'm also valued and loved no matter how productive I am. I think one of the things that's been really special for me to learn is that it's oftentimes the more unproductive things that actually play a significant role in helping us grow closer together and also to be able to care for ourselves better.
I can go next. I agree so much. Oh my goodness. Like, yes, all those snaps to that. Also, I one of my first loves is spoken word. So I know we can't see all of y'all, but if y'all resonate with something I say or the team says, like, give me some snaps, y'all. Like, that just fills my soul. Um, but yeah, for me, I would say it's urgency, which I think is kind of tying into what Jade was saying. Urgency is a byproduct of colonization and white supremacy, and I rebuke that. I rebuke that from my spirit. I think it's really a learned behavior. And, you often joke, I guess, if you're from our communities or whatever, but you often hear people joking about CPT or colored people time. And honestly, some people get offended by that. But for me, I feel like it's a form of resistance and a way to reclaim our time. Granted, in moderation, right? Because I do think procrastination could be an issue, but right, I also think procrastination is a trauma response to what we've been dealt. And to that point, it's like, how can you kind of navigate and manage that? But then also realizing I'm on my own time and it's okay. Like, my timeline is not someone else's timeline, and that's more than enough for me. So that's something I've been kind of unlearning and unpacking in my creator journey.
I've been unmute. I'm trying to unmute. I'm like an old person. Um, I literally am an old person now. So I was just like trying to make notes because my brain, in trying to listen, this is where you have to know your brain. I'm like, okay, yes, okay, remember that. I think the reactivity urgency thing definitely for me has been something I've had to unlearn, like this idea of uh, the productivity and power is connected to responding right away, and this idea of like winning the conversation or argument instead of
Yeah.
just holding space for where everyone is at, and that many truths can exist in a situation. And I just think that as a creator, why that is relevant is because a lot of times you're doing everything. You're a solopreneur, you're a small business owner, and because of that, there's a lot going on. And I think for in the past, uh, I would want to move to the next stage quickly, right? Because it meant, okay, I get quicker to the goal instead of kind of sitting in the journey, right? And giving
Yeah.
space for the journey. And then also a lot of my, I would say, mistakes and missteps which needed to happen clearly because I got to learn that, was in the fact that I was just needing to protect myself and respond right away, and I was, it came from a place of insecurity and anxiety, and no right decision is made from an anxious place. Yes, there's definitely moments where you need to respond to things quickly, but the more you can get grounded as you move to those next steps in this fast-paced culture, the better. And just sleep, this idea of sleeping on it. Like my dad would always say, like, why are you responding right away? You could just wait till tomorrow. And in my head at the time, I was like, no, I can't wait till tomorrow. Like, really? Yeah, like, come on, you could wait. Like, nothing, things do move quickly, but if, I would say the right thing can wait a beat, including if you're not comfortable yet with that thing, or you're triggered possibly. So you're in your own head, you can't respond properly for yourself. So I would say that the self-worth and productivity thing, definitely. I mean, when I started what's trending over a decade ago, a lot of success, and then there were a lot of failures and in between moments. And that was really difficult for me because I tied myself to this brand. So, getting to a place where whether it wins or fails, like, yeah, I'm safe, I'm okay in my skin, in who I am, has been huge. And then success looks differently for everyone, right? That's been a huge thing to unlearn. Like, what is success? At my age and where I'm at, there's a lot of feelings sometimes that throw me on like a downward spiral, which is like, oh, being at this place where you're at my age, maybe married, have a kid, have a certain amount of savings, maybe own a home, all these things that I personally don't have yet. And yet I have so many other things that people that have that don't have. So it's just like really reflecting on what success means to you. And it's okay if other people have certain things. If you do want those things, that's great information. But also if you're like, present to what you have and there's gratitude for that, it might lead to that or it might lead to something else. But just being, understanding what success means to you is so important versus in comparison to someone else, including when you're a creator and living your life in public and like seeing what everyone is doing, which obviously, as we know, doesn't match what is actually happening and going on.
Absolutely. I love that you said that, Shira, because I think that was kind of the realization I had very early on in my career. When you go, I think when you're young, you kind of, to Alex's point, you're filled with these ideas in your head about what success looks like from an early stage. And there's so many factors that are influencing what success might mean to you. But as you come into your own, which was the case for me, I think I had this like hard hitting reality when I was working in corporate, and I was like, oh my God, I hate it here, but like I'm supposed to work here because this is what they told me to do, and it was a struggle. And I think it was unfortunate for me at that time because I think in those moments I would like work myself to the bone knowing that it wasn't really healthy for me. Like literally had a stint in the urgent care because of appendicitis, was on my period for like 30 days, which is insane. And it was like it wasn't until those points where I was like, oh, something should probably change. So like that to me is mental illness, because there's literally something happening in me where I'm like, I'm going to wait until I'm physically depleted or damn near dying to decide to make some changes. So I think once I realized that working so hard and working so aggressively and reaching for this imaginary growth or whatever it was at the time, I think now I'm in a position, thank God for my therapist, and just life experience, that I am now recognizing the signs of burnout before they happen so that I don't get into a position where I'm completely depleted before I start actually thinking about my health. Um, but doing that has been tremendous for my mental health, which brings me to my next question. What does taking care of your mental health look like in your day-to-day and your work as a creator? Have you ever felt the need to pause or step back from creating, and what led to that decision? Or if so, what led to that decision and how did it affect your work?
Who wants to start? Mimi, you go.
Yeah, I'll kick us off. Well, just to kind of also acknowledge your last point, Jade, like they're one of my favorite creators. His name is Heinz or Hindsight, and I literally religiously watch his YouTube videos every day. And when he doesn't post one, I'm like, okay, gotta watch the previous one that he uploaded. But one of the things he mentioned, so sometimes he'll refer to the Tao, And one of the key insights he shared was, too much information can lead to inflammation, right? Inflammation of the mind, and which can obviously manifest physically, spiritually, financially, all of the things. And that really kind of got me thinking too, because I feel like, especially now with the rise of AI and everyone using it, I feel like people are overproducing, and like there's so much more information that is at our fingertips, which I don't necessarily think is always a bad thing, but I think in which the way we, consume it can be really bad, and how we consume it can really cause inflammation. And so, to your point, before something becomes a crisis, right? What are the tools or practices that we need to put in place to, acknowledge that, to really address that inflammation? Um, but that was me essentially last year. To your point about pausing, it like literally broke my soul. Like break my soul, cue Beyonce. Like it literally did, because I had to pause everything, and I think I wasn't prepared for crisis. I mean, when are we really ever ready for a crisis to happen? But and a lot of folks, if you already know me and hear my story, I share a lot. I'm very open. But 36 people have passed in my life, so that does something to a person, right? I live with complex PTSD. I have frequent panic attacks and really intense anxiety. And so with that, I need to make sure I'm being mindful. I have a lot of tools at my mental health, my disposal, or my mental health toolkit, if you will. But last year, I met my birth father's family for the first time, and my birth father passed when I was a baby. So having this amazing life moment to meet my family that I never knew, for my grandfather only to die 4 months after meeting him. And then my aunt got killed in a car accident 2 months after that. And so, I have a podcast about grief. Like, oh my gosh, like I created the community and the resource that I needed and that I always wish existed, but who was taking care of me or checking in on me, And so I had so many speaking engagements lined up, consulting gigs, had to pause all of it, had to stop all of it. And that affected my bag. That affected my mental health even further, right? So really checking in with myself. And now a really powerful question that I want to share with everyone tuning in, that I check in with me frequently, is, does my nervous system consent to this? Because if it doesn't, then it's not welcome. Or maybe it said not right now and maybe later. And just like really having that discernment with my time, with how I'm managing my mental health, and how I'm nurturing my community. Because I really do think expressing ourselves for me is nourishment. Like when I create content, it's a way to nourish my soul, and that's something I will never stop doing, but in moderation, right? As with everything. So just wanted to share that.
Really quick, Mimi, one thing I wanted to double tap on that you said is that, you're focused on creating this community for people who are also grieving, but then you're asking yourself the question, how am I pouring back into myself? That's something that I feel like is a challenge for a lot of creators, especially creators that are building community, whether it be offline or in person. It's like you're pouring so much time and energy and resources into building your community so that other people can feel safe and feel comfortable and have the resources that they need, and then you turn around and then you feel very depleted. I feel like I experienced that in real time, even with this creator community. And something that I really had to do was really think about, okay, what am I giving that I can't give back to myself? So one of the things going into this year, even with the series, I was like, I know that I still want to do the series. I don't want to wrap it just because. I was like, I think last year I was doing 2 episodes a month, and organizing between like 6 different panelists per episode. It was a lot going on, y'all. So this year I was like, we're doing 3 panelists and I'm doing it once a month. And no one has complained yet, and I think we put that pressure on ourselves to like continue doing things the way we've always done them. And it's like, what will people say? What if they don't get it anymore? It'll be fine, because you are the visionary.
Real quick on that point, I think there's a difference between building for community and building with community. So last year I was building for, And this year I made it a point to build with and co-creating. And I think that's a big difference, because now I feel like I genuinely have a community that's also pouring into me. Like, hey, Mimi, I said your name in this space, in this opportunity. Hey, Mimi, I saw this podcast that would really help your mental, like, you know, and I think that's the difference, that people are moving intentionally in how they actually build community. So that's been a huge mind and like lifesaver for me.
Absolutely.
I was going to say also, everything has its season, right? So sometimes, including when you launch something and you're in it, you're like, yeah, I'll do it twice a month. Like, I know I need to do this to put it out there. And then you sometimes reach a point where you say, okay, you look at the data, you look at your experience, and you say, okay, based on this and how I'm feeling, like what you just said, which was great. Like, I don't want to stop doing it, but I need to do it a different way.
Yeah.
And so these are good, important questions to ask yourself, because a lot of times it's not that you want to completely stop, but sometimes there needs to be a break, a beat, to step back, to look at what's working, what's not working, and to move back into it. That's just strategic, right? Or then you might say, I actually don't like this anymore. This doesn't fit where I'm at. And then you can make a conscious decision to do something else. And that's why those slowdowns are so important. I've even had a hard time because I definitely feel this pressure with what I do. I mean, I started What's Trending. My friend said when I started it, like, good luck. Like, now you actually need to be on top of What's Trending. It's exactly. It's like, okay, thank you, universe. And with that, I had to learn to get support also and create systems for myself. If I wanted to continue, this is the only way it's going to work. And you know what? With that also maybe comes judgment sometimes behind the scenes, and like with other people. I sometimes, and maybe I put this on myself, my neurotic side, but feeling of, oh, this could be bigger, it could be better. Oh, you should be more involved, less involved. Everyone has a freaking opinion. And guess what? I say thank you. And it's taken me a long time to not get lost in those opinions. Oh, you know what? They're right. And then I make myself feel bad and judge myself and all that. And to say, I appreciate your perspective. This is how it works for me. Or else, guess what? This is not going to continue. I've had even to tell that to my team members. You should be more blah, 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 blah. And I had to say, if that's the case, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. It's not sustainable for me. I've been doing it over a decade, and I lost myself in it. The only way this works right now, and for my mental health and my own freedom of expression, like, I want to do other things. And so I either shut this down, or we continue it with this in this way. And I've had to just stand in that, right? In that awareness and power. And sometimes as a company, it needs, like, mom needs to come in and help out and be more in the weeds and roll up my sleeves and be in founder mode. And then sometimes it's, managing on its own, and I get to step away a bit. But for me, I think my minor depression, sometimes an anxiety, comes from having ideas and things that I want to put out in this world and delaying them. So I've found joy in getting those things out there, not waiting for permission, which is like what all this space is about. And then letting go of it being necessarily perfect or the most successful thing, number one ever, knowing at least I tried. For me, that, in many ways is success. And so there's the, even my AI download podcast, like, it was more the exercise of let's get it out there. Like, I got a little sponsor, and it was like, okay, let's just get it going, get the workflow. And then, at a certain point saying, does this work still? Or do I want to be number one, or that reach more people? For me, it was like, there's steps to that. If you try to go from point A to point Z, you're going to drive yourself crazy every time. And then why are you doing it? Are you doing perfection to be the best? And all of us have our own reasons. So I just think in general, you need to know yourself, really, because what works for me might not work for you. And you need to know those signs, just like you said, Jayde, of when things are starting to go downhill. For me, it's when I start really being snappy and mean to myself, where I know I probably need more sleep. I need to do more things for me, take care of myself. And also when I'm being impatient with other people, when I'm coming into that where I'm like, I want it. And sometimes that happens hormonally, depending on the
Good for you for recognizing it.
Right? No, I recognize it. I'm like, and then saying, like, I need this space, or this isn't fun anymore. I'm starting to get in too much work being hard on myself mode of it needs to be perfect. Why aren't I getting my reviews? Da, da, da. And I have to be like, okay, why are you doing this? And you just have to step back, because that is where it's a never ending hole. You're never going to be good enough. You're never going to be big enough. All this. And even Mr. Beast has said, you look at Mr. Beast, he was like, he's still depressed. There's always more that you can do. And so, do you want to be happy in life, or do you want this? It's like there's a bit of a balance. Like, but in the end, it goes
Yeah.
back to, what is your goal? What do you want in your life? And is what you're doing and how you're doing it helping or hurting that? Okay, no, it's like that. There's diagrams like yes or no. Okay, let's go there. Yes or no.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
go there. You need to constantly be
Yeah.
adjusting, and responding to what's happening in yourself and with the things around you. So that's what I would say.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely align with what both of you were saying. I feel like a lot of that kind of goes back to redefining your definition of success, because what we're working towards, the goals that we're trying to accomplish, that's going to determine what the path is. And along the way, we kind of have to make sure that we're positioning ourselves, um, like strategically, of course, but also in a way that's like very aligned with where we are emotionally, spiritually, mentally, whatever that looks like. And I do feel like that tends to get lost along the journey because you're so focused on the output or what's going to be produced, or is it perfect, or is it going to look really good? How are people going to respond to it? And sometimes you just got to take a step back and be like, it'll get there when it gets there. So I do want to switch gears very quickly because I know there's some social media professionals in the audience. And Alex, being our resident social media professional, besides me, I wanted to ask you a question, because you're working in-house at a brand. So you're a social media marketing professional. Do you think there's a mental health cost to constantly creating for virality, engagement, or how do you resist the pressure from executives or other internal stakeholders? Obviously, you and I have had conversations at length about this, and I already know the answer, but love for you to share with the audience.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think one of the things that comes to mind for me is that, we can only control what we can control. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Virality, engagement, sure, as a strategist, I can do all the things, do all the research, kind of dive deep into the ways in which I think we might have a better chance at potentially getting some of that engagement, or put our content in in a space where it has more potential for that
Mm-hmm.
virality. But if I could sit here and predict that every post is going to get that, like, I'm probably not sitting in this house right now. And so, I think, like, for us, like, it really is, for me, it's like, hey, can I resist this pressure, of, having to think that everything has to hit this point, or thinking of content as either good or bad. For me, it's all data points. They're all learning opportunities. It's a
Mm-hmm.
chance to be able to look at that content, whether it performed in a way that I wanted it to, underperformed, overperformed, all of that. There's information within it that helps us see, okay, cool. This is something that we can take into our content for next time to either repeat and build upon, or it's something where we say, hey, maybe this didn't go the direction that we wanted it to, and we have an opportunity to pivot and try something new here. I also think that, within social media, we were talking about urgency earlier. There are few industries where that urgency is actually, especially necessary. In most
Yeah.
cases, social media isn't going to be one of those. In most cases, we're not saving lives with the content that we're creating. And so there is a lot of pressure, of course, through how always on it is. And, I've had times earlier in my career where I didn't necessarily have that level of balance with it, to where I could be sitting there 9 p.m., 10 p.m. at night, just scrolling through notifications and sending off replies just because, like, that's what I thought you do.
Yeah.
But nothing was ever that urgent. Nothing ever required that level of attention. And so I think throughout my career, like, I've learned to resist that pressure, especially, it's, of course, it can be daunting. It can be scary when, that's coming from leadership or someone who's in kind of a greater, a place of authority. But I think for me, like one of the things that one I always try to understand is like, hey, what is the ask? Like what's actually being asked here? And then within that too, is there something that we could potentially deprioritize so that we can prioritize this thing that we're being asked to focus on rather than just, taking one block, putting it on another, putting it on the other, putting it on the other. And then you've kind of got this like wobbly Jenga tower that can fall at any point. And so I think for me, it really is like, hey, okay, cool. If you want us to say yes to this thing, what's the thing that we can potentially say no to so that we can put our utmost focus into this?
Beautiful. Lewis, thank you for that because absolutely. I think that is something that social media professionals can obviously take with them leaving this conversation today, but I also feel like that applies to creators as well. It's the same thing. You kind of put the pressure on yourself to have that sense of urgency and produce, 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 but you have to do what's really realistic for you. And this especially applies to creators who are like in the community space as well. Like, there's so many things going on even beyond social where you may feel that as well, whether it be in-person activations. Like I know many creators who their whole entire niche is just in-person events. Same thing. I think I met a creator at that conference we were talking about earlier, Shira, where they said they do an event, basically one event a week for a year last year. And I'm like, are you okay? And he was like, yeah, we're going to scale back soon. I was like, good for you. Because that's a lot, So I think it's just like really thinking about what you feel like is reasonable for you and what is doable for you and trying to remove that pressure to outperform. So Mimi, a question for you. You mentioned earlier that your work is centered around your experiences with grief. One of the conversations I often have with other creators is about like the boundaries that we're implementing online, whether that be because of parasocial relationships, the pressure to perform, the pressure to produce, whatever that looks like. What boundaries do you set, if any, around what parts of your life you share online, and how do you know when something is too sacred to post?
Oh my gosh, such a good question. Also, please, I have to respond to something Alex said earlier too, though,
Yeah, go ahead.
really quick, and then I'll transition because I think it also segues into it. But then, like, I just want to just talk about metrics for a second, because if any creator, I don't know, the TikTok trend right now, the propaganda that I'm not buying into right now is that creators or brands or whatever, we don't care about metrics. Honestly, I do care about metrics. I'm gonna be like so raw and real and transparent about that. Saying you don't care about metrics is like saying you don't look at yourself in the mirror every day, in my humble opinion. But I think the difference is the way we associate the word care, like the meaning that we're assigning to the word care, right? I think it just has different weights. And so I feel like it's just, as Alex was saying, like it is a data, it's information, right? Like I literally have a video right now that's going viral on YouTube. I'm like, really? Out of all videos, this video is going viral? Like, what do you mean? But I think it's just information like, okay, I'm on the right path. Maybe I need to like pivot more and spend more time in YouTube, right? Versus like, I was really trying to nurture TikTok, but maybe that's not my bag right now. Maybe I need to just focus on LinkedIn and YouTube. But also as a speaker, something that's kind of helped me shift that perspective too is like, okay, if a post flops, right? And I'm also in-house social media manager for a nonprofit that I work for LinkedIn. But anyways, like if I get like 5 to 15 likes, okay, that's a Zoom breakout. Cool beans. Okay, if I have 20 to 30 people likes or whatever, that's a small workshop. Bigger than that, 50 to 70, large workshop. And baby, honey, if we have 100+ likes, we on a keynote. Like, come on, really how you kind of weigh or I guess associate meaning to the word care about metrics.
Yeah, that's a great perspective, Mimi. Thank you for sharing that.
Really needed to say that. And I'll make it quick. The other thing that you said too. So regarding boundaries, right? So my journey really started as an activist, community organizer. And I feel like naturally, if you are an activist or in that space or like the social justice space, you are naturally going to probably have your boundaries compromised time and time again. we're bridges get walked on and stepped on, right? You're bridging worlds, you're bridging perspectives, cultures, roles, all the things. And so with that, I think I kind of took an oath that I was going to be an open book and sharing my vulnerabilities, because so many people have died in my life that didn't make it past the age of 30, right? Who died without sharing their stories, died without getting their dreams, actualized. And so I kind of feel like if we share our stories, it gives permission to other people to share theirs. So I'm okay with being an open book and compromising sometimes and making sure they're not blurred. But I think the key for me that has helped my mental health has been like timing, right? Like if there's certain things that I'm going through right now, it doesn't have to be shared at this moment. Like maybe I can share it at a later time once I've kind of processed it. And I do think it's like a trauma response from Caribbean families. I feel like Jayde, you probably relate to that for me too, but
Alex too.
um, but like being honest about that. And then something that I kind of refer to here and there, like I'm a medium, but I don't share those experiences because a lot of people, one, don't believe in that because, they believe in Christianity, which is completely fine. I'm more spiritual. There's just certain things that are sacred that a lot of people just can't have access to. And then also my relationship. I've been in a relationship for almost 8 years. He's my honey, he's my rock, he's my anchor, and he's a very private person. And I'm just like, talk to me. Here's my business. And he's very private. So, I think boundaries is a form of love, not limitations. And like, I'm trying to learn that with my own content journey too. So, yeah.
Beautiful. I love that you said that. Love, not limitations. I feel like we need to talk about that a little bit more. That's another episode in itself. Last question before we get into Q&A for Shira. So obviously you are here to chat about creator care, which I'm very excited about. I got the preview in the article with Wired. So I wanted you to tell us a little bit more about it and also just talk about what gaps or pain points were you seeing in the community that kind of inspired the launch of it.
Yeah, I so appreciate it. And check out the Wired article. Jayde posted about it. That was really awesome. And although I was a bit salty about the fact that they said influencers versus creators, because everyone was like, why do I care about influencers? And I was like, what? I mean, creators are influencers, but then it's also just thinking that like we're people that just pose and try to promote products constantly. That's why I look like influencers versus, anyway. But that aside, there needs to be some education there. But yeah, I think that over my decade or so, I mean, really, it's been since I came to LA, like aging myself, like 2004. I've been in digital media and then seeing the whole industry evolve and change and get created and having my own experience of many high highs and many low lows. And then also just witnessing my peers and even every year there's a new batch of people come into this space and hearing from them of like what they're going through and the feeling of feeling like a bit not just lost when they go through that. Like there's always people around when you have success, right? But it's when you are experiencing something else that I think there's like a bit of a lack of that support. Like where do you go when you feel like, okay, when you're viral, there's so many people around, so many people that want to talk to you, but when that's not happening, or I don't know, whatever you're going through, or how many times have we witnessed a creator literally fall apart on in their content in front of our eyes, and we're sitting there, some of us being entertained by it or sharing it. Like, are there people? Is there behind the scenes support? And so there was just a bit of a feeling of a bit of a disconnect with this industry, especially with this industry getting so many headlines, fundraising. It's going to be worth half a trillion by 2027. And yet I feel this dichotomy of like really a lot of excitement. And on the other side, a lot of confusion, a lot of burnout, as we know, behind the scenes, a lot of talk on mental health. And yet there was nothing really trying to solve that, besides Mental Health Awareness Month that happens, or like some companies do their thing, or they're known as lifestyle mental health companies. And so it was really from experiencing all of that and seeing the gap. And so Creators for Mental Health kind of emerged from that originally as an event last year, and seeing the interest and popularity around that. And I had been doing some stuff through a wellness organization I had through the pandemic, and bringing facilitators to get together to do donation-based classes, and then doing some corporate wellness. And then I think I finally had that aha moment of like, oh, this is my community that I've been in, and we need this now. I think this is the time. And so after having those events and realizing obviously the importance of advocacy and storytelling to advocate for these things and destigmatize mental health, for me, it was like, okay, a lot of people are doing it, which is great, but where are the solutions? Like, we're waiting on platforms and they're doing, I mean, TikTok has announced a few things like meditation for if you're under 18 at a certain point of doom scrolling. And, this is a lot of talk is happening around the platforms, but then I felt just still like, what do services look like? If creators are going through something, are there mental health services that are one available at an accessible rate? Because our money financials fluctuate a lot, which creates obviously boundaries for access, because like the last thing you're thinking about when you don't have a lot of money is like taking care of yourself, unfortunately, even though your mental health is spiraling. And
Yeah.
so I got fortunate. I knew the founders of this therapy company out of California, and they saw what I was doing and they just said like, can we help? Which was so awesome because I was talking to all the names, the big name companies, or was trying to, and none of them would respond to me. So, so you know what? I was like, okay, you see me, let's do something. And they already had the model because they were doing a similar thing for families and youth in California out of their right outside San Francisco. And so we shifted it. They're still doing that, but then we created Creator Care as a division to focus in on digital creators, digital gig workers, as I like to call us. A lot of times you get a bad rap, creator, influencer, but when you say we're a digital gig worker, people start saying, oh, well, that seems a bit different, and it's a workplace that's growing faster than a lot of other industries. So how are we going to be protected? What are the frameworks to make this an actual sustainable space for all of us and also the next generation? If there's like 56% of Gen Z want to be influencers, what are we creating for them that allows this to be a healthy, safe space? So that was really the inspiration. And I'm very fortunate for the partnership with Revive Health Therapy that allowed for this. And so again, it's with or without insurance, sliding scale, as low as $60 an hour up to $180 depending on your income, session by session, not a package rate. And then we're consistently going to be training the therapists and discussing what it means to be a creator, like parasocial relationships, online bullying and harassment, identity and self-worth and validation through the work you're doing. These are things that are very, I think it's very human to go through these things, but it's very specific to creators and what we're doing right now and how the industry is evolving. So starting in California, hopefully we'll expand nationwide. But if you're a creator in California or you know one, please spread the word, creatorcare.co. You can get a 15-minute free consultation, and then we'll partner, connect you to a therapist that works for you, and all different types of therapy also that you hear about, not just talk therapy. So that's basically the gist.
Thank you, Shira. Yeah, no, I'm so excited when you told me about it too. Anyone in the audience that's in California, please tap into Creator Care and learn more about it, especially if you don't already have a therapist, because it's just such a beautiful resource. I'm personally looking forward to when y'all expand across the nation and come to the good old dirty South.
We need resources, but then also we need a show. Unfortunately, there needs to be these pilots, right? Because also the way you need to be licensed in certain states, the way this works in this country. So my hope is we'll have enough interest out of California that we could show that there's a model and it's important that there's a need.
Yeah, there's a need.
And absolutely, that we could then expand. But thanks.
Yeah, I'm rooting for y'all. Thank you. So y'all, if you're in the chat, feel free to drop any questions. We have about a little less than 10 minutes to ask. I think we can answer maybe like one or two questions. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. But one thing I just wanted to add that I feel really sums up a lot of the conversation we had today is like, obviously mental health is your priority. But one of the things that I often encourage other creators to do is move at your own pace. Like everything you do has to make sense for you and only you. It does not need to make sense for anyone else. And I think, in this industry, there's a lot of comparison, a lot of contrast. we look at other creators and we're like, how are they moving faster? How did they do this faster than I could? It literally does not matter because everyone else is living very different lives. So you have to move at your own pace for your own sanity and the protection of your mental health. Let me see. I think I just saw first question come in from Hannah. Hannah from Atlanta. Hey, girl. Okay, so Hannah said, and that's literally what I call her every time I see her. Hey, Hannah from Atlanta. She said, as creatives working in corporate spaces, how do you balance protecting your mental health with being visible, especially when visibility can feel performative or risky depending on who's watching? It's an excellent question. Any thoughts, anyone?
I can kick us off and I'll be like super quick and hopefully we could do like lightning round responses because I know to get some questions in. But yeah, I mean, I was working in corporate. I was working at a Fortune 500 company 2 years ago before I resigned and went on my own. And I was a chief of staff to a chief executive in the C-suite. And I was very vocal on LinkedIn. And it was something I was very transparent about in the beginning. And some workplaces are receptive to that, some are not. But at the end of the day, for me, because I know like so many people have died in my life. Life is bigger than the workplaces that we work at, right? Like there's real life things, dreams that we want to do, people that we have to support, things, whatever. So I'm very transparent about that from like, hey, and this could even help our brand grow if you're willing to kind of meet me where I am. I can even, while I'm growing my personal brand, I can also help the company's brand. And I think it's a detriment when a lot of creators don't get to do that because your reputation is like so wrapped up in the company's reputation, so that if something were to happen like a layoff or you resign, holy shit, you have to start from scratch like with your personal brand. And so this is a kind of a way to make sure that doesn't happen. But just being transparent has helped me.
Should we? Anyone?
Yeah, anyone else can go. We have a little
I would
time.
say
Yeah.
as someone who's like, I have a company, I work for companies. I think that definitely, I encourage companies and bosses to embrace if their teams or contractors, employees are creators, because you could obviously benefit from it, and all boats rise. Is that the saying? But then there also needs to be an understanding of, I think that a sensitivity. Listen, like I love a good vent, but I'm aware that if I'm venting out something with a client I talked to that day, maybe I want to put that in the drafts. There needs to be still a bit of like some etiquette, some
Decorum.
social, I would say it's just being like respectful and responsible. Of course, you could think things and all that, but you have to be aware of the holistic, relationship and what you're doing and why. And that comes with being a creator and also, working with other companies. If you're not okay with that and oh shoot, that person might get annoyed or mad, like you do need to put it through those filters, even if you're independent. That is just the reality. If that doesn't work for you, then don't work for a place. Like if you're going to be in someone else's home, you need to kind of take your shoes off at the front, this, that. Doesn't mean you can't be you, but it does come maybe with some awareness and filtering.
Stipulations.
That is just the reality. So again, if that is too much for you and yourself, like I feel like I'm now not being myself, then yes, you need to choose another direction or work for people that you won't need to feel like you're walking around eggshells. Like when you start walking around eggshells, maybe that's not the right space for you to grow and then also be yourself in your other private, like public private spaces. But ultimately, like ideally, these are also spaces that accept all of those sides of you. But again, just like you got to use your reason and awareness of like people will see stuff. Like when I'm annoyed and I want to vent about my team, like I'm not going to do that. It's not going to be productive and help. Maybe I might
Don't take it on me.
Yeah, maybe I might videotape it for the future. Like these are all things we need to think about. It's not just like it is a free for all, but be aware a free for all comes with consequences. That's what I would say sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah, one thing I'll add to that is don't put it in the Slack channel because they can always see the Slack channel. So take it to a personal text conversation.
Well, that's true too. Yeah, but again, everyone has their own, bar or post, right? Goal post.
Yeah.
And you have to know if it's getting to the point where you are censoring yourself, you're a smaller version of yourself, you're dimming your light, then that's not the right space. If it's just that you're aware and accountable and responsible, that's a different thing.
Absolutely. So we have another question from Carrie Benjamin. Said, knowing what you all know now, what boundaries and processes would you have set up at the beginning of your creator journey? I love that question.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It
Um,
is.
I think for me, and I nodded to it a little bit, but I think one is just really putting boundaries on what my work hours were, kind of understanding that this is something that I've evolved in, but ultimately knowing that for the way that my life is set up and how I want to show up in my life, that uh, it's an 8 hour workday and that's it. I have a lot of life that I want to be able to tap into outside of that, whether that be my own creative pursuits, whether that be my people, whether that be just making time for myself to just sit, rest, relax, do all that kind of stuff. And so for me, that's one of those really important ones. Because I think, yeah, coming out of school or whatever it may be, you're excited. You're like, oh, I want to own this opportunity, really want to take it to the next level, want to impress the people around me. And that can all happen, but it also doesn't have to come at the cost of your own time, your own energy, your own sense of well being.
Mhm.
Those are some of the things that, for me, some of the reasons why I'm so, I won't say strict, but I think mindful of how I show up and what my boundaries are, is because I started to see that the more that I was saying yes to, the more that I was just kind of just opening myself up to anything, how easy it was for uh, me to kind of lose myself in it. And also, I think, Mimi was talking about it earlier, but like those things can actually, like, your body will kind of tell you like when it's time to slow down and when something needs to change. And for me, I want to ensure that I can show up, um, be able to show up and actually like enjoy this life and the
Yeah,
people around me, in the ways that I can. And so that requires a level of mindfulness to what my boundaries are and what things I need to say yes and no to.
absolutely. Alex, I feel like your response kind of answers this last question too, but I'll go ahead and read it anyway. So, Joel, hi, Joel. He said, how have each of you created a balance with creating content, but also separating the journey from your personal lives? Basically, he means, yes, creating content, but also fulfilling yourselves outside of creating community. I feel like I'll speak to that a little bit because the majority of my job is content creating in a lot of different capacities. I think one thing that I've had to do is say no to work opportunities a lot. Even if I really wanted them, I think I kind of came to this decision that, again, I'm going to move in a very sustainable way that makes sense for me. So if that means that's going to put me, like, my favorite thing to do and to tell my potential clients or brand partners is that I don't work more than 60 hours a month. that's that's just where I'm at. I don't have the capacity to do more than that. So with that in mind, when I sign a contract, whether it be a brand partnership, an agency client, whatever that looks like, I'm like, how many hours do y'all want me to be available for? And if that goes beyond what I can do, I fear we cannot work together. And that's just where I'm at now. So does that mean I miss out on money that could be great for me? Yes. But the fruit of my labor or not doing labor is that I get to really enjoy my life outside of my job. I get to come home and just sit on my couch and watch reruns of Scandal, or I get to go see my friends a lot more, or I get to go on walks. And to me, that is much more important than the money that I could be potentially earning. And especially just because I know if I'm doing work that I don't really want to do, it's not going to be good anyway. So why do it? So that is my form of balance.
Wanted to add to that. So a lot of folks in my community know I say my my reframe of BDE is BBE, is channel your big boundary energy. Okay, big lotto energy over here. Like boundaries, boundaries. Something just like a quick practice or tool that I'm trying to implement is like detox days. So I kid you not, y'all, like over the weekend, it took a lot of time, but like I unfollowed mad people on LinkedIn that were from my last job. And I think curating your feed, curating the people that you follow, the information that you consume. Remember I said earlier, a lot of information can lead to inflammation. We are getting rid of the inflammation, honey. We getting rid of the people that do not feed my soul, my spirit, and my nervous system. So detoxing in that way, detoxing the time I spend on social. I think a big one for me too, I think maybe some of us can relate to it, is like as soon as I wake up in the morning, before I check my inbox or LinkedIn or whatever, I'm gonna check in with myself. Like, what do I need? And like, I sage, like literally have my big red blood dragon sage here. I sage multiple times a day. I take really deep breaths, do like walks and everything like that. But just really, I think to what you're saying, Jayde, you need to have that self-awareness and that checking in with yourself before you're even able to discern the things that you cannot take on. You know, it's a really big piece. And I will say, being a content creator and now like monetizing and like really getting to the bag finally, after all this time, is like having that self-awareness. And I feel like being a content creator kind of helped me navigate my self-awareness even more, if I'm being quite honest with you. But discernment is a huge piece to that. So Jayde is the queen of that, and I love it.
Thanks, Mimi. No, I love that too. And I love your smudge stick because yes. Well, yeah, y'all, this has been the mental health episode. Thank you so much for coming. It was so great to have my panelists here, Mimi, Shira, Alex. Thank you. I appreciate y'all so much. Basically, the ethos of this episode is take care of your mental health at all costs, creators. Please. That is really it. The replay of this episode will be live sometime next week on my YouTube channel. And if you're subscribed to my newsletter, Creator Tea Talk, it will also be sent out via my newsletter. But if you're not subscribed, you can subscribe on creatorteatalk.com. And then if you haven't already, give all of us a follow on LinkedIn, Instagram, all the other channels. Subscribe to Alex's newsletter, subscribe to mine, follow Mimi on YouTube, subscribe to Shira on all channel, and subscribe to What's Trending, please. And then be on the lookout for the next episode, which would be at the end of next month, which tentatively is going to be about talent management. So stay tuned, y'all. Thank you. Bye.